hard to believe it's been a year since we got into the space for the first time, and the ceiling wasn't all the way out yet at that point in time. We had my church planting coach up from Texas. He just happened to be in the same time we were having kind of our prayer meeting here. And now he is one of the guys that's there in the Houston area that's been in the path of the hurricane. And we've got another church plant there, Coast Point, that's there. Amy's parents have a church that's down in that Houston region, so we do lift up our prayers for those guys here this morning. But man, it's an exciting time. It's hard to believe, 3 years. And this is just this facility the last year. And I don't know how many of you guys thinking like, wow, we've only been here for a year, or man, we've already been here for a year. It just seems like it just goes that way. And the facility really doesn't look much like it did then. Legwork into that, and I know a lot of you put a lot of your time and energy into making it happen as well. So thank you for doing that and giving us a place to call home for the time being. And super excited to be here with you. And a lot of times, guys, to be honest, you get the story from my perspective. You get what Mike saw, what Mike experienced, because I can't speak for you guys. But today in both services, I've got a number of people that I'm bringing up because I want you to hear their stories and their perspective on the impact of Connection Christian Church. So I'd like to start with my wife. Many of you, you probably don't get a chance to hang with Kara. If you have kids, you'll recognize Kara from the kids ministry area. She's there nearly every week. And in the kids ministry area, she is taking care of all of the details. And she's got a team that she works with because, believe it or not, she also works a full-time job of being a para at Emerson Elementary School, and tries to manage the home and tries to keep me under control. So you've got all of that to contend with, and I know that throughout our life together, Kara's continually been stretched. She's kind of a homebody, kind of behind the scenes. And when we first got together, it was like, you're going to be a youth pastor. Okay, well, maybe I can handle that. You want to talk about that, like that journey from being a youth pastor to being the lead pastor to being a church planter, and kind of what emotions were going on?
It was a challenging time, I'd say, but God was very, He blessed me because I was always able to have time to process it. But change is not an easy thing for me, so it was a very, good time of stretching, I guess you'd say.
Now, I remember whenever we were in Texas for a graduation, and Justin Ralston, a friend, colleague that's over in Wayne, he sent a Facebook message about the possibility of planting a church in Columbus. And I remember kind of reaching over and showing that to you on my phone. And what kind of thoughts were going through your mind as you were reading that?
Well, my first thought was, I get to go back to Nebraska because I grew up here. So I was actually very excited by the prospect. And then you dig deeper into church planting, and then it's kind of scary again because you're kind of at the forefront of everything that goes on. And I was thankful that Mike is the person that is usually in front because that's not mine.
And I think for me, that was one of the go-tos, like, oh, my wife is on board with this. This is something that, I don't have to build her up for. She's just already, God has been working at that. And we had talked through that ahead of time, too, because as I've shared with many of you guys, a reoccurring dream of planting a church. And so a couple years prior to that, we're kind of discussing what that could look like. As we came down here, obviously we had a lot of friends up there loading the truck for us in crazy cold weather, and then we get down here and we're starting to unpack. Talk about what's going through the head of a mom and the wife of a church planter as you're coming to Columbus for the first time.
I think for me it was mostly just trying to keep my family going because we had 3 kids it was Christmas, like right after Christmas we moved. So we moved in the middle of the school year. Our oldest struggles with change a lot. And so it was just trying to keep the balance and trying to keep things going more than anything. And trying to encourage you because you were kind of in that I don't know what I'm doing stage 2.
I'm still there. So there's constantly that tension, and I think that you deal with it a whole lot more than I do, the tension of home and work, and then also having the full-time job outside of the church. So whenever we came down and I kind of gave you the opportunity, like, what do you see your role being, within this church plan? You kind of talked about children's ministry, and you'd helped out with children's ministry there and kind of been building to that point. What are your thoughts in regards to like coming in and starting the children's ministry and kind of developing a team and having enough volunteers? And what's kind of kept you going, and what's been some of the bigger struggles that you faced?
The grace of God has kept me going. I think the first year we were going, I was in children's church every week. So that was a little tough, but as I said, the grace of God kept me going. It's been not always been easy getting the volunteers that we need, but God has blessed us over the 3 years, and now we're up to almost 30 volunteers, so that's awesome. We always would want more, though, if anybody wants to help us out. But so it's been good.
It's been a kind of a crazy ride, and the first time that we went into the gym, and it wasn't you necessarily in the gym. You had a hallway and a couple of little classrooms. One was really a supply closet. So we stuffed you in the corner with kids ministry. What was going through your mind as you were trying to figure out how to make all of that work?
I really don't know. It was a little crazy, just hoping that people would come, and because the gym was so big, our hallways weren't quite as big, but there was still an ample amount of space. So we're just hoping and praying that people would come and check us out.
Fantastic. Well, if you guys have any questions, just from my wife's perspective, she's really good one-on-one. You get her into this setting, and she's like a bag of nerves. And so I appreciate her coming up and sharing this. And guys, to be quite honest, like I wouldn't be here where I am without her right there by my side. And that's not just as a pastor, but that's as a man of God. So it's meant a lot, and it continues to mean a lot. And the church planting venture would not be where it is without the two of us being able to work together and to kind of challenge each other. She kind of holds me back and reins me in, and I push her outside of the box quite a bit. And we work together really well to make that happen. So I appreciate you coming up and taking the time. Mark and Lindsay have been here not quite a year. Lindsay just did the announcement, so you recognize her from that, but that was not a live shoot. Believe it or not, she has already played volleyball this morning, big tournament, so she is a trooper on that. This is live, and I'm going to hand it to you. So I want to hear, one of the two. Here you go.
She didn't want a chair.
I
doesn't.
really don't want to sit that
You don't want to sit?
I
Okay.
do not want to sit, thank you.
Cool. Well, we're about the same height anyway, I think. That works out. So you guys have been coming not quite a year. How did you get connected here at Connection?
We actually had Melanie, his ex-wife, started attending here, and we came to like the graduation ceremony that she had. They had a cake, and she invited us to that.
The Easter egg hunt at the Boss Creek.
Yep, been to the Easter egg hunt a couple times. We lived in Fremont before, so coming regular before that wasn't quite as easy. And so she invited us a couple different times, different things going on. And that's how we started meeting here.
So Melanie was coming with the kids, and you were coming over for the
And
kids?
then there was just one stalker. Every time I go to my daughter's softball game, this stalker with a beard would come up and say hi. That'd be Mike?
No, I don't know.
You don't know?
No,
that'd
I don't
be
know.
you.
That'd be me. I am pretty good asking my kids about just going around and talking to people. They're like, okay, Dad, can we go yet? Can we go yet?
I thought you were running for office or something, like maybe mayor.
Yeah. Good one. I like that. I'm not quite as tall as Mike Mosier. But, since I've been around myself from birth, that's what people have called me, so I go with it.
Okay.
Fantastic. So it's great to have you guys on board. I know that your move here to Columbus was also an opportunity to get plugged into a church, to kind of hit the reset button. You've been searching a little bit. Share with us as much as you feel comfortable, kind of what was going through your mind as you're making that transition to Columbus.
Like I said, we lived in Fremont, and it just wasn't working there. The church we had attended there. There was just some people there that, we didn't get along with well, I guess, to put this simply. And so we were searching for a church for like 2 years. And then finally God said that this was our church. And we actually started attending 2-3 months before we moved. So every Sunday we did that hour drive here for an hour service and then an hour back. Because God just said this was our church and this is where we needed to be. And we started house hunting at that point too, so.
That's kind of cool. So you guys are like church planners. You move before you know like what you're going to do.
Well, I didn't have a lot of choice because God said we're going here. So I started packing.
Yeah, there you go. So one of the really cool things, not too long ago, we had the opportunity, Mark, to baptize you into Christ. And that was also a commitment that you made to Lindsay as well. So the two of you are getting married this December.
That was smooth.
So that's pretty exciting. And it's exciting to see how God is working in your lives. I know that you're working in a number of different areas around the church. What are some of the different ways that you're plugging in?
I have helped out with the children's ministry. I helped out with VBS, again in the children's. We do, up on stage. I'm sure you've seen us both up here before. And I help out in the sound booth as well.
I just stay up here and try to hide.
Try to hide behind the drum set or the bass guitar. Yeah.
Don't give me a mic very often, so it's kind of easy.
And for those of you guys who are coming out to Glory Park after the service, which should be just about everybody, we're also going to have some funnel cakes and some kettle corn. That's because this guy collects a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And so whenever it's like, hey, who's got one of those? He's like, yeah, I got that.
It's kind of embarrassing, but yeah.
And so we're pretty excited to actually use it, and we want you to be there to be able to participate in that as well. What keeps you guys coming back? I know that you said you came over, and, you had some experience when you came over to support the kids and through the ex-wife, but what kind of keeps you coming back?
I don't have family in Nebraska, and so it's really hard not to have anybody around, but this church has become my family. I know that if I need somebody, I know I can contact, certain people here that instead of just having family here, church is my family now. So that's what keeps me coming back, the support and love that we've gotten from everybody here.
For me, it's just the acceptance for who we are, where we are, and nobody's afraid to come up and say hi. It's always a welcoming situation when we come in here. And for a lot of years after we left our old church, you'd see some of the people on the street and they would almost go to the other side of the street to not talk to you. And it's the exact opposite here. This is what church was meant to be, and this is how I always envisioned a church being and how the people should act and treat one another. So,
Fantastic. Well, appreciate you sharing that. I want to ask one final question with you guys, and that is kind of you hit on it a little bit, but what does connection, having that in your life, mean to you?
I don't want to cry today. Can I skip this question?
you're gonna cry, aren't you? What is the question again?
What does connection?
I was busy listening to her.
What does connection mean to you? What's it mean having that in your life?
Basically, it's just having a family that you don't have to invite over for dinner.
There you go.
Sunday dinner always was a problem when you were kids because, there's always somebody, part of the family that want to come over and mooch your food. These people, they don't care. They just want to see you and go on your merry way, and they love on you while you're here, and if you need something, you can call them. So it's just...
We'll still mooch your food.
Yeah.
Same family you actually want to come over for dinner.
Okay, that'd be better, yeah.
A family that actually wants to come over for dinner. Fantastic. Thanks for coming up, guys. Appreciate it. Ginger, you want to come on up? Probably not, but... All right. So, Ginger, how long have you been coming to Connection now?
Well, I started in Lost Creek with your grand opening, so that was 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
Crazy. I was thinking it was only 2 until you said that. I was like, wow, 3 years. So.
Yeah, imagine 2 years ago in May, last May, we went back to the housing authority where we really got started at, and it was so small, so cramped. We were trying to figure out how to get our stuff inside, let alone get the people in there as well. But 3 years ago, and how did you hear about Connection?
I heard about Connection 3 different times before I actually checked it out. You guys were doing a bouncy house for NeighborWorks, and I talked to Amy a little bit because she was up there. And then I was at Columbus Days, and my friend has a nonprofit, and we actually ended up being right across from them, and we had you guys pray. And then I got a card in the mail, and I was like, maybe it's a sign, maybe I should check it out, because I was looking at different churches at that time. So.
Fantastic. Well, that's something that I want to kind of share with you guys, is you never know like what that one thing is going to be, and usually that one thing is not one thing, it's one more thing. And so if you wonder, like when you take the inflatables out and you're busy sweating it out in the community and trying not to strangle kids that are being unruly inside of the bounce house and the obstacle course, guys, that may be one time where somebody first hears about Connection. And that may be the opportunity that we have to shine the light of Jesus into somebody's home. And it may take another invite down the road. It may take something difficult happening in their life. But you never know, as long as you're putting yourself out there, when God might use it. And I love that personal invite side of things too, because I think that is by and large the greatest event. So
Yeah, I really appreciated when you guys prayed over us for that. My friend's kind of bold and I'm not, and she's like, well, let's just go have them pray over us. It's a church. And I'm like, really? So I thought that was really cool, that really inviting, and you guys were right on that. So, and you had no idea who we were.
Friend.
Yeah, she is mine.
Fantastic. Well, what keeps you coming back?
The people and the family, and the fact that the emphasis isn't on the church, it's outside of the church. So I think that it's really important that Christ is shown in the community. And a lot of times we get stuck in our routines and want to stay in the church and be the church, but we really need to be the church outside in the community. And that is something that I've always been passionate about. So.
Fantastic. And so what are some different ways that you serve around here?
Of course, the band. I've done children's service. I've done VBS. Anything you ask me to, I'll do. I'll say sure, and I'll be like, why? Why'd I just say yes? Like today, no.
Right. This is a huge one. Like, this is out of my comfort zone. Like,
Totally.
Exactly. Well, thanks for coming up here. I want to leave you with that same last question that I had from Mark and Lindsay, and that is, what does having Connection in your life mean for you?
It's an opportunity for me to grow in Christ with people who just show Christ. So, it's my family. So.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right, I'm going to ask Josh and Danielle to come on up. And Danielle, if you want to take a seat, and Josh, just kind of stand off by the side here. You are the extra baggage for today. No, you're the old one, I know. I'm in your shoes, I understand. So you guys have kind of an exciting thing coming up, like within 6 days, I think it is. Like, what's going on in your world?
We're getting married next Saturday. This next Saturday.
Next Saturday, so that's pretty exciting. So Daniel, tell us how you got to be at Connection.
Ooh, this is really fun. So I went to college at Wayne State, and I went to a church there called Journey, and we were praying for this church in Columbus that Justin was helping Mike plant. And so I didn't know, I just knew I'm from Columbus. I wasn't planning on ending up in Columbus, but we were praying for this church to get started. And then I ended up working here as a teacher, and I went because of like recommendations from Wayne. So that's how I started.
That's really cool. Josh, how did you get connected?
A year ago, I did not even know where Columbus was on a map. So, church was not on my radar, but I met Danielle when we were both in Lincoln. And she came to church here fairly regularly. And I had just moved to Omaha and was kind of hopping around in Omaha looking for churches, and would come up occasionally to come here, and just felt really drawn to this church and the community here. And so I kept.
Well, let's be honest. That's not all you were drawn to.
No, it was nice to have an excuse. Well, I'm in Columbus for the afternoon. We might as well hang out. It was also pretty cool too.
Yeah. There's a special someone, so might as well go to church while I'm there. And hey, that's
Exactly.
where she goes. So, no, that's cool. And I know that last week you got to do the announcement video, and you said ulterior motives,
Yep.
and so now you're meeting the ulterior motive. But Regardless of which, it's great to have you both on board. Talk about some of the different ministries that you've been helping out with since you've been here.
So I have been involved in the children's ministry as well as playing in the band. And I have tried to roll. One time I tried to roll up the inflatable, and then Josh yelled at me and said I did a poor job. So I'm done with the inflatables ministry. But, anything else I'm on board with.
I've also been helping out with children's ministry, and Josh and I, when we talked about what our values, as a family is going to be, it was always service. So I know Mike told us in marital counseling, don't let us put too much pressure on you. Don't feel like you're obligated to be at the church 3 times a night. And we're like, no, that's where we want to be. So.
Well, that's cool, and we'll put you to work. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's the way we are. But what keeps you guys coming back to Connection?
So now that I've locked in my ulterior motives, for me, it's the community of people that are here. I mean, we're surrounded by people who have service on their heart, and that's a big part for me as a church that cares deeply about the family, but then also the people right outside of our doors. And you can see that and you can feel that in the ministry here, and that to me is just a thing that I want to be a part of, and I feel like I can be, so that's why I come.
I love that it's not just a Sunday hour. Church takes up our Sunday whole mornings normally, but it's just super encouraging to see people of faith, and then to take that throughout the week. Josh and I will constantly bring up the message that you talked about, and then grow groups are super nifty to stay connected and have those group of people who are just loving each other. Sign up for grow groups.
All right, and kind of the last question, and this is kind of the one that I want to leave people with, is what does Connection, what does that having that in your life mean to you?
Ooh, so Connection's huge. Instead of, just church being a compartment in your life, this is, should form your whole life. So just the fact that the Lord is preached about and shared, I don't think it's just a part of your life, but it definitely helps form your life.
Yeah, definitely. For me, church is not a one day of a week thing where I come in and then I walk out the door and kind of forget about it. I feel that I have some connection to Connection Church every day, and through that, it forces me to think about the Word and thinks me. What? Sorry, Zach's being distracting. But to really focus on the Word throughout the day, and I think having the church and the church family involved in my life in a very personal way, I think is awesome.
Fantastic. Well, I would like to ask your grow group to come up and pray with you guys as you're getting ready for marriage. Would that be cool? So if you've been a part of their grow group, their small group Bible study, I want to ask you to just kind of come up. I'll pray so you don't have to worry about being on the spot. But so we're just going to kind of lay a hand on them. These guys are, they're uber important, not just to the ministry, but to one another. And we take marriage pretty seriously. And the idea that you guys get to make that covenant together with one another and before God is super exciting. So we're happy to pray for you. And Father God, we do pray for Josh and Danielle. We ask that you prepare their hearts and their minds as they get ready for this lifelong journey together. That as you join them, that you give them patience and understanding. That you humble their hearts and give them the opportunity to serve one another as they serve you. Father, may that passage from Ephesians that we've spent so much time discussing really come to life in their marriage, that they love one another as the way that Christ loved the church, that they submit to one another as to the Lord. And Father, that as they continue to embrace one another, they embrace the differences, they embrace the uniqueness of your creation. And Father, may you just continue to help that relationship grow, but grow in an understanding of your word and of your will for their life. And so each step of each day, of each year of the life that they have together, may they continue to grow closer to you and closer to one another. Bless the family that they will eventually have together, and wherever life takes them, may you continue to open up those pathways for them. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for coming up, guys. It's definitely one of the beauties of a grow group is being able to do life together. We talk about sermon-based small group, but it's really more than that. It's an opportunity to do life with a few other people, to really share your heart, your desires, your fears, your frustrations, your challenges, your joys, with some other people who really care. And so if you haven't signed up, we encourage you to do so. Amber had the opportunity to do the announcement video a couple weeks ago, and she's like, I thought you were going to edit that.
I looked pretty silly.
It was awesome. How many of you appreciated that if you were here? Oh, man, it was exciting. So, Amber, tell me, how did you get connected here?
Well, okay, here's the truth.
Thanks for starting there. Appreciate it.
My life was kind of now I'm going to cry. Always. They call it, what is it? Raining Amber when I cry here. Because I cry a lot. I'm grateful. But my life was a poop show. And I had got a DUI, and I was crying a lot at school. And Megan Johnson kept telling me, come to church. Come to church. I go to church here. It's great. The people are great. And so I came to church. And she didn't give up on me, and she's seen me crying a lot, so she knew I needed something outside our realm.
Somebody paying attention to somebody who's hurting.
YouTube?
This is on YouTube. And this isn't just broadcasting like to Columbus. This is going around the world.
Maybe I'll be famous.
Everybody is going to be raining Ambers. It's going to be great. I'm going to ask Megan if you'd come on up. Megan was instrumental in you getting connected with the church. And how do you guys know each other?
She's my boss.
I get to tell her what to do every day.
So you guys work together, and you work at where?
Lost Creek.
Lost Creek. So we have a number of teachers that are here at Connection, and man, we love them. We love them because, they're investing in the next generation, and that's something that we take pretty important around here. Megan, how did you get connected with the church?
One of the first days of school, whenever you guys were doing your grand opening, you put full-size candy bars in the teacher's lounge. And I thought we were kind of at a spot, we had been going to a church, but they didn't have any kids ministry there, and that started to be a pretty big deal for us because I got tired of babysitting my kids during church. So I thought, oh, they put full-size candy bars for us. I guess maybe we should try that. So we did.
That's awesome. Now, what I want to tell you guys is imagine the power of that dollar that you could spend on somebody's life. Think about that. You have a neighbor, you have a coworker, you have a family member that you could brighten their day with $1, a piece of chocolate, right? And you never know what difference that's going to make. But the really cool thing is that didn't just make the difference in one life, but it went to another. Because somebody else saw someone who was hurting, somebody who was broken, somebody who was in need, and just give them the invite. You didn't have to be a rock star about it.
No, I'm not a rock star.
You just had to be open. And you're a rock star, absolutely. And I think always. And I want to tell you, these two ladies serve big time in our kids' ministry area. And what else have you been doing around Connection?
Oh, well, we got a Halloween fall festival coming up.
Yeah, doing a Halloween thing for the kiddos.
I had a part in that last year also, and VBS, we both did. Oh, yeah, Johnsons were responsible for that cool maze. Are you going to do that again this year?
I don't know.
You've just been asked in front of everybody.
Jimmy's not listening.
Okay, no, he's not even looking at us.
Okay.
No, they do a ton in the kids ministry department, and it's not just that their lives have been impacted, but guys, they're paying it forward. Not just in the public school system, though they are there, and they're making a difference. But they're also making a difference here with every kid that comes through. So if you have children in the kids ministry department, it's people like this who are making a difference and paying it forward in the lives of our young people. And I want to take a moment just to applaud everybody that's over there serving hard in our kids ministry area. So can you tell me, what does Connection mean to you?
I think it's just a place that challenges me to get out of my comfort zone and reach out a little bit more. And I really like that it takes care of my kids and helps me raise them up in Christian values and to teach them about Jesus' love. They are loved here. We bring a lot of different kids in, and every one of them has been loved and accepted for however long they're with us. So yeah, it just pushes me to grow and helps me remember to teach my kids too. So.
Do you remember the question?
No.
What does Connection mean to you?
Connection's awesome. Connection is family. Connection is, I don't know, I just am free when I come here. I like the humor in your messages. I like Josh and Amy and their tattoos rocking it on stage. And everybody's different. I like that. It's cool.
Well, I know that Megan, Amber's not the only person you've brought to church, but there's a guy here that comes with you most every time. Jimmy, you want to make your way up? Thanks, Amber. Let's give her a hand. And I just want to take a moment to applaud you for a couple of things, and these guys may not know it. There are not that many guys, we have a few, that take the time out to work in a kids ministry department. And Jimmy is one of those guys. We have one over there today. During the first service, we had Josh Petra up on stage. He's also over there. Man, we appreciate our guys who take the time to love on the kids and to teach them. A lot of the kids, they just don't get the positive male role models in their life. And it's not just happening there. But you guys have another ministry you do on the side, and that's foster parenting. You've adopted a couple children. You now have a family of 5 kiddos just bouncing off the walls. Your life is probably anything but normal, but you get a chance to love on the love of kids. Can you tell us a little bit about what the foster care system means for you guys?
Well, first it means we get a family. God took a broken mess and gave us 2 beautiful children that we get to call our own, so that's pretty incredible.
Kind of acting like Bill Belichick here. I don't have many words.
It's definitely, God's thrown us into lifestyles and living and things that we would never have interacted with on our own. Paths crossed that would never have crossed, and it's a challenge for sure. And you're trying to work with families and with children that are very, very broken, and in some pretty big messes that we can't even see the way out of, let alone the parents themselves who are in it being able to get out of it. But we've seen God be faithful to us. We've had to trust him in ways we never had before. We've been broken and hurt as we take kids in and say goodbye to kids.
A lot of people always say, they say God bless us for doing this thing, but really God is one blessing us with these kids. It's not us, it's all through him, and we're the ones who get blessed. I mean, we're lucky to have these kids with us, and hopefully we make a difference in their lives, but there's a lot more of the effect certainly falls on us with us being blessed by this as well.
Absolutely. Megan, I know that you work with some pretty amazing kids at school, some special needs children, and this last couple of years, you and Amber have kind of had an opportunity to spearhead an initiative to get a playground going at Lost Creek. Tell us kind of about that journey and what that means to you to seeing that construction going on for that all-inclusive playground.
Oh man, talk about another challenge. And the dream was started by a colleague of mine, Michelle Figge, and she's kind of known for having big dreams, and I'm known for getting crap done. So she came to me with this dream, and I was like, all right, let's do this, let's get on it. And it was really a God. I mean, we had to raise the final total we raised was like $289,000 out of nothing. And it was for a really small population that they really need it, and they're really important kids, but it's hard to sell that story when it truly affects 5 or 6 kids. So it was an uphill battle, you just think everyone talks to you and says, oh, of course, it's such a good project and so worthwhile and meaningful. Good luck. And we're like, no, but we need your money. So asking people for money is the worst thing I've ever had to do. That really sucks. But it really pushed me to get out of my comfort zone, to really sell this dream and mission that God planted, and challenged me. There's so many times that it was so hard. I worked through lunch writing grants and sending letters that I knew would never get answered, and trying to call people when I did not want to ask people for money. And it was really hard, but it was a dream God gave, and we had to truly believe, like, okay, God said he was going to do this, he's going to do it. It doesn't feel like it. It's taking a lot longer than we want it to. We're tired, but he's going to do it, and he is. So Monday the equipment comes, and Tuesday it gets installed, and I can't wait till we get our kids out there.
That's exciting.
And Jimmy's very jealous because Eric Crouch, the Nebraska Husker quarterback, is who designed the playground. So I got to meet with him several times. Shook his hand. I have his cell phone number if you...
Jimmy, as much as you admire him, he does not get to live with your wife.
No.
Just remember that. So the last couple of things, Jimmy, I want to target you. You're now taking over the responsibilities as the head men's baseball coach for Columbus High. How cool is that?
Very cool. Very excited.
And I know one of the things that you do as well is not just coach, but you love on kids at the high school level, whether that's teaching math or that's on the athletic field, and you're active with Fellowship of Christian Athletes in the school system. Tell us what that means to have a ministry like that within the Columbus High School.
Just like I think all of you have been coming to Connection, see that relationships are huge here, and I believe that in sports, whatever sport you play or coach or anything, and more than just sports, but as a coach, I work to build relationships first, whether that's my team or through FCA or that type of thing, because that's what leads to great things. They say they don't care how much you know until you know how much they care, and that's something I certainly make sure that my players know and my students know, and just as well. So
great. Can we give them a hand, guys? Do so. I'm going to ask Dan to come on up. Dan and I had a good opportunity to visit at Columbus Days, and I appreciated what he had to say and thought, well, man, this would be great to bring in. Now, I realized that if we were like on a news channel broadcast, we would have adjusting chairs, and so I could pump up, and so you just have to forgive us, we're just different sizes. And Dan has been coming to Connection for how long?
A little bit over 2 years, I believe.
A little bit over 2 years. Now, how did you hear about Connection?
I was actually giving my testimony at another organization, and I had mentioned that I had never really had much luck with churches, growing up in one denomination that I didn't really quite understand or take to. And Tim Chris came up to me with a card and gave it to me and said, why don't you come see what we're like? And so I came to that first Sunday, and I remember you guys had some type of potluck afterwards, and I was getting ready to leave, and somebody said, well, why aren't you staying? I said, well, I didn't even know about this, and so I didn't bring anything. They said, well, that doesn't matter. And so people came up to me right away and sat with me and started talking to me. And I think what really attracted me to this place first was just the music, because you guys actually celebrate Christ through your music.
Fantastic. A couple of things I want to pull out of that. Some of you are coming today and you're like, oh, you're having tacos today? I didn't know anything about it. I didn't bring anything. Yeah, and come on out. You know, if I need to starve for another couple hours until I get home to make something, that's cool. We just want everybody to come out and be a part of that. And it's always about being inclusive. But many of you guys know Tim, because Tim is the guy that shakes your hand when you first walk through the door here at Connection. He's the one guy that wears a suit jacket nearly every week, right? And so everybody knows who Tim is, and Tim is actively involved not just here at Connection, but in other organizations, and have the opportunity to talk with Dan and to bring him in. And you never know when God is going to place that someone in your life. And it's just a matter of being able to hear the opportunities that are around you. And so what he was hearing in Dan is, like, I just have had a difficult time connecting with the churches I've been at. And the music, I like how you describe that. It's a celebration. It's an amazing pumping up of what God has done. What are some of the things that Connection has really meant for you?
Well, I guess what I see is people who actually want a relationship with Christ. And I've said it before, this is the first church where I've actually wanted to go to, where I don't feel like I have to, but I look forward to going to. And to me, it was all about watching people developing a relationship with Christ, but it was also, you talked a lot about God's mercy, and that really struck home with me a lot. And so when I see people, accept people for who they are and not judge them, I think that was the biggest thing, one of the things that attracted me to this place.
Right, just to be accepted without the judgment, being able to appreciate the love and, compelling you to do more. Dan right now is not what he wants to do, but he's an over-the-road truck driver. And Dan is contacted me a couple different times, but once was here just recently. He said, man, I'm going to be out of town, actually in Georgia, and I want that sermon posted, so let me know when that's up. And so we went the extra mile, made sure it was up on Sunday, shot him the link over. And I want you guys to know that that's there for you as well. So if you miss a week, you can go on to the Facebook page, and you can pull up the link to the sermons. You can go to YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel, and then every time there's a video posted, you can get that bit of information. It's also on our website, connectionchristianchurch.com. It's also a great way to plug the church. Like if you're visiting with somebody else who may not know, they're a little uncertain about the church, you can just connect them to facebook.com/Columbus to Christ, or back to the website, and they'll get bits and pieces of that. I just want to take a moment here to say thanks to Tim. Tim is in the back, and Tim is doing what we're continually asking you guys to do. Who is your one? Who's that person that God has put on your heart to love, to serve, to invite, to pray for? And I'm thankful that he invited you here.
Thank you. And I guess one thing I'd like to add is one of the things that kind of solidified me to keep coming here was, as you know, on May 1st, my dad went to the Lord. And that Sunday, when he had already kind of gone into his sleep, I remember I came here to church, and Tim asked me how I was doing. I kind of whispered in his ear about my dad, and I came here, and you had asked me how I was doing. I kind of whispered in your ear about my dad, and that sermon, it was kind of what I needed. And I remember I was kind of emotional when I got here, and when I got here after your sermon and after seeing everybody, that kind of a peace came over me. And I remember when he went to the Lord, my brothers were there, and they were crying, other people were crying, and I was actually about ready to go in my truck, and they called me, and when I got there, I was fine, and people kept asking, we don't understand, why are you not getting emotional? I said, because thanks to the church and other places, I said, I made my peace with this, and I know he's happy where he's at, and so this really isn't a sad occasion, it's a celebration. And so that's kind of what solidified me staying with this church, and I thank you for it.
Fantastic. Great to have you up, man. And that's not the only one. Tim invited Dan here, but he also invited Brian. And Brian's sitting there in the back, and we were just hanging out a little bit Friday night, and Brian's like, yeah, Tim just puts me to work. And Tim does that. If you stand around, Tim will find you a job. And so just be aware of it. if you need to navigate that, but hopefully you just come in with a humble heart and you're willing to do it, because I know that he definitely brings that and models that in so many ways. So thankful to have him on the team, and thankful to have Brian here as well. And all of you guys, you really do make up this church. And it's more than brick and mortar. It's more than just a time and an experience together. It's more than an hour on Sunday morning. As much time and energy went in, like when you saw that slideshow of making this place feel our own. This building is not the church. You are. Right? We don't do this ministry so that we can develop another program and so that we can busy up the rest of our life with other activity. We do it because people matter and because we really care. And so when we share the story of Connection, we share it with the lives of people. And if somebody asks me how the church is going, I don't share about, hey, we just got this facility. I share about the lives of people, because people are what really matters. Last year when we gathered together, we were challenged by the book of Nehemiah. And Nehemiah was a guy that was doing his job as a cupbearer to the king in a faraway land. And Nehemiah realized that his family was living in ruins. His temple to his God was in shambles. And he couldn't help but feel compelled to do something about it. And I'm going to share with you just a little bit from Nehemiah chapter 1, page 255 in the Bibles we provide if you want to follow along there. Nehemiah chapter 1. It says in verse 3, "The remnant there in the province who had survived the exile is in trouble and shame. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and its gates are destroyed by fire." Now this is a messenger coming to those who are no longer living in that area. You see, the people had rebelled against God. They had turned away from God, and God allowed the outside enemy to come in and just demolish them. But God always saved a remnant. In verse 4, the words of Nehemiah, "As soon as I heard these words, I sat down and I wept and I mourned for days. And I continued fasting and praying before the God of heaven." When you see the brokenness of the people around you, I hope that it drives you closer to God. I hope that it breaks your heart and it brings you to your knees, and that you can't help but feel compelled to share with them about the love of Jesus in their life. And if Connection Christian Church can be a part of that story, we are so appreciative of that. But we don't really care where somebody goes to church. What we do care about is if they go to heaven. And we're so thankful that we get to be a part of so many people's journey on their way to heaven. And you guys get an opportunity to do that as well. Because on the front lines, you see the brokenness that is around you. You see the brokenness that exists in your own families. You see the brokenness that exists in the lives of your coworkers. You see the brokenness that exists in your friends. Now, I don't get to see that. You are the church. And you are the mode in which Jesus has chosen to take his message to the people around the world, and specifically the people in your life. And so as Nehemiah was broken and he was praying, he said, "O Lord God of heaven, the great and awesome God who keeps covenant and steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments. Let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer of your servant that I now pray before you today, day and night, for the people of Israel, your servants, confessing the sins of the people of Israel, which have sinned against you. Even I and my father's house have sinned. We have acted very corruptly against you and have not kept the commandments, the statutes, and the rules that you commanded your servant Moses. Remember the word that you commanded your servant Moses, saying, 'If you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the people. But if you return to me and keep my commands and do them, though you are outcasts, are in the uttermost parts of heaven. From there I will gather them and bring them to the places that I have chosen, and to make my name dwell there. They are your servants and your people, whom you have redeemed by the great power and by your strong hand. O Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight to fear your name, and give success to your servants today, and grant him mercy in the sight of the man. And Nehemiah was broken to the point of confession. And some of us, we come in with some pretty strong pride. We're here, but we're not broken yet. And God needs to humble us so that he can build us back up, because that's what he does. He's in the business of redeeming the lost, of restoring the broken, of building back those lives that are in shambles. As much as Nehemiah loved his people, he went back and he rebuilt the wall around Jerusalem. And he started that process. But I think the biggest concern of Nehemiah and of God was not building a wall, but building a people. Guys, Connection Christian Church is here on behalf of God to build a people. Thank you for being the laborers that get out there and get it done. Thank you for allowing yourself to be humbled so that God can restore you and build you up. Be a vessel that God can use. Just like John the Baptist said, let us become less so that he can become more. From the beginning, God has been building a church in Columbus. And from the beginning, I've been saying, I just got to try not to mess it up. Guys, there's a lot of truth to that. You and I know in our lives, there's brokenness. In our lives, there's guilt. In our lives, there's shame. In our lives, there is a stubbornness. But through God, all things are possible. And he wants to come in and heal you and to connect this Columbus area to Jesus Christ. Father, I'm so thankful that we serve a God who loves us despite our flaws and our imperfections. As a matter of fact, we serve a God who uses those very imperfections to reach the people around us who oftentimes are living broken lives. Break our hearts, Father, as the song says, for what breaks yours. Help us to see the brokenness around us, and not buildings that need repaired, but lives that need restored. And Father, give us the boldness to speak into lives, not out of pride or arrogance, but out of love and compassion, that wants to see greatness happen in the people that you've created. Help us to continue to be mindful of your mission to reach this Columbus area for Jesus Christ, to be able to restore families and marriages, and to be able to model into the community we've been placed in, whether that's at work or at home or at play, that Jesus is the rock, and Jesus changes everything. It's in his name we pray. Amen.